Hello, we're about to do some trimming. Trimming is working on the other half of the world. We've talked about the lip and how important it is that you get that as a nice lip up at that edge. Well, the other half of the world is just as important, and that's called trimming. Trimming is basically when I start to get rid of excess material down here and start to define it and start to make a foot on here. The first thing I have to learn to do is to recognize leather hard. Leather hard has that same kind of consistency and color that clay has got, but it's rigid. I can't distort the rim too much. It's pretty well on its way to being its shape. This is considered the sunrise and the sunset of clay. It doesn't last very long, but very beautiful time of day. There are degrees of leather hard. Some people call it cheese hard, that it has lost a certain amount of water in there. I like mine fairly firm, but I don't want it to go green. I don't want it to lose that color of raw clay. Once I know that it's in leather hard, I need to re-center this clay on the wheel. I try to get it as close as I can with the concentric rings that are on here, but if I take my needle and hold it rigid, it'll give me a little bit of a scratch. I can take that scratch, I'm going to find that line segment, I'm going to split it and push that direction until my line is running in harmony with that wheel head. Eventually, you'll take your left hand and tap it on the money. Once I have it recentered, I'm going to take my sponge and get a little bit of water on the wheel head. I don't want to get it against my pot because that will scar it. I'm going to take 3 little wads of clay and press down to the wheel head. Don't press into your lip, press down to the wheel head. 3 is really all it needs. Double check you're on the money. Trimming tools comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, just like people. They have different loops on their tops and they have different angles to be able to cut, but the basic thing is those curves. This curve here and that curve is where I really want to start being able to cut. Either one of them can be comfortable with. I'm very comfortable with this guy. First thing I want to do is I want to declare the outside of it. It's a two-handed operation. I'm not going to sit back here like this. I want to put my hands together and I want to declare that's where I want my foot to go. Clay is going to be coming through this. It should be coming off in a ribbon. I'm holding my hands rigid. I want it to do the cutting. It's a lot like working on a lathe. Now I'm going to roll it into my pot. Make that arc very pretty. Next I'm going to come and hollow out that center. So I'll only have that foot ring on here to be touching on the kiln shelf. I have satisfied the needs of the foot. I've created daylight underneath here. I have a point where the glaze will stop, where the foot will begin, but now we need to make it look beautiful. Clay should be coming off in a ribbon. If it's coming off in chunks, probably your clay is too wet. If it's coming off in dust, it's too dry. I can make it more like a patty, coming in here and rounding it. Since I have a nice rounded lip, it might be nice to have a nice little rounded foot. There's a lot of grog or sand in your clay and you want to really start to press it back down into that surface. You want that terra sigillata up at the surface so that you really have a smooth foot. If I can polish that foot now, it won't scratch anything when it's in use. Put a little bit of water on there, press it down with your finger. Do the same thing on the outside. I put a thing called a glaze ring about right here. That makes it easier for when I wax them off. Last thing we're going to do is sign it, pick it up, feel it. If it takes 14 people to pick it up, it's too heavy. You want to put it back down and trim off some of it. See how much you've got in here. Feel the thickness. It should be reflecting the outside of the pot and the inside of the pot. Feet can have different types of profiles. This is a very simple type of a foot on this one. We're going to center this guy. I'm going to get the outside damp again. I'm going to put down our wads of clay. In this case, I'm not going to cut quite as fancy as the one. I'm going to allow the tool to do more of it. I'm going to give it a real simple type of a foot. I'm going to use that arc right there and just cut myself a real nice, healthy foot. Maybe come down here and blend it into the pot a little bit. So now I'm going to stop my glaze right here. I'm going to come back here and just hollow this out a little bit. Everybody goes through the bottom sooner or later. Becomes an instant flower pot. A couple of things you can do to check it out. Sound has a high echo. That means that it's going to be very thin. It means it's a little bit thicker if it goes dud, 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 dud. You can also take a little bit of pressure. Press it down. Is it moving? Is there any point that it's starting to go down in there? As long as I've created some daylight underneath here, I've got it lightened up in weight, I am ready now to get rid of my grog and my trimming marks. I'm going to force that grog back into the surface, bring the cingulata to the surface. Now I've got it smooth. Last thing we do is sign it, take it off the wheel. Again, if it takes too many people to do it, maybe it's too heavy to be able to pull it off. Trimming is essential to the bottom of it. Some potters do a lot of trimming, some potters do no trimming. It all depends on how you complete it. But there's an old adage that they say is that if you can't throw it, trim it.